Chapter 55 Guarantee of Truth. The witches prepared the carts, and got excited at the idea of causing a bit of struggle to the incoming mortals. The forces of Xing had cost them much. It would only be fair that interest be repaid to them in some amount of suffering. They had prepared difficult to detect magics in the wheels that would over time make it more and more common for them to fall off. It would happen about halfway through their journey. Eventually it would halt them. It was no fatal thing, but it would certainly give them satisfaction to know their deal would cause them future pain. So well hidden were the spells that they would be undetectable, and further, even attempts at dispelling them would doubtful work. They could search for an hour, and they would not find it. What's more is the beasts were bewitched to go mad part way through the journey. This spell would take some work, but they suspected the mortals would find it. Should they inspect the animals closely, they would find their bewitchments would make them tame only for a short time. However, they expected the mortals to find this. They would find this, make demands for them to change it. The witches would ultimately agree to solve this easily fixable problem. After all, the mortals would expect some kind of trouble. But what better way to hide the real problem than under another? Like hiding a corpse far underneath the grave. When they found it, they would likely assume that was all they did. There were some minor things they assumed the mortals would dispel magic or inspect the carts physically. But the mortals would not find the real problem. Realizing the danger as the mortals approached, Odissa, the witch of Tar, commanded the lesser and younger witches to flee, one of which was her daughter. She said to her, "Away, away with you all, the mortals shall come soon. It is best that you flee before they arrive. The caravan is still a little ways off. I shall be the one to bargain, and if I am killed, it shall be only me. They shall ask what I have done to the carts, and in truth I shall tell them I have done nothing to the carts." The witches let out a bit of cackling laughter, then hurried along their way. They traveled together for safety, and made their way to the main encampment. The witches had little ways to go, and needed to maintain some numbers to stay safe in case a stray hunter attacked. Odissa appeared to be an elder woman with black hair, which seemed to be covered in black ooze found occasionally throughout the bog. Her clothes were black and tattered, her arms and legs oversized in length. Even her fingernails were long and drenched in blackened ooze. Her face had splotches of gunk here and there, and it seemed to do little to bother her. She walked around the bog barefoot, despite the fact that there could be any number of things in the water. Odissa waited for the mortals minute by minute. Nearly half an hour went by before they arrived. She bowed to them, and presented the carts with an extended open hand. "I am called Odissa of Tar. Before you lies the instrument of our bargain. Who among you speaks for the company?" Approaching was Meredith and Scipio, but they would be having none of it. "We'll not be the ones making the bargain. The one speaking for the company is not here," Scipio said. Odissa looked about the group. So many. She supposed she was glad they brought more carts than expected. They were going to have trouble with just this. "So many tired. Surely you could take a rest. The carts, I think, you'll find, are not dangerous at all. Should you wish to lay in them, we will not complain." Scipio knew better. "No, we will wait until Darius arrives." Odissa began to fish for information. "Perhaps this Darius will come before us soon." Meredith growled, "Shut up and wait. He'll be here." So wait they did, and they remained quiet. The witch looked over them carefully, and studied who among them would be casters. They had many warriors, and many who would use magic. They had an attractive water priestess with them clinging to a tired boy. They had an impressive paladin. They had an injured hunter who looked to be Jackal by her eyes. They didn't seem to be an organized unit, but a mass of different groups placed into one. Although she supposed they were united well enough to face a coven. Yes, they could do considerable damage if they were to turn against the main encampment. But strictly by numbers and how tired they were, they needed to leave. The witches would lose many if they tried to kill their forces. They would lose half the coven or more before they fell. She supposed the deal of giving up a few carts was a bargain. Witches loved bargains. Alyssa smiled at her elder. Odissa nodded to her, then spoke. "Is this one your prisoner?" They did not respond, and she did not speak. It was painfully obvious. The tar witch smiled with blackened teeth. It is foolish to take a witch prisoner. Scipio shut her up fast. "I agree, but our commander insisted she be brought here. She is the reason we were able to make this deal." Odissa extended. Could it perhaps be arranged that she be returned to us? Scipio had no idea. He shrugged. Who knows? I'll have to leave that to the commander. Odissa fished some more information. This commander, he is experienced? What should I call him, and when should I expect to see him? Out of the woods came a voice, not belonging to Darius. Soon, you should expect him soon. Out stepped Kenson. He looked tired, but apparently he lost those that were chasing him. There's no telling how much he had to move or how many trees he had to climb. It couldn't have been easy to outrun tireless undead or witch spawn. Meredith greeted him with a nod. We're just waiting for the colonel. Odysseus smiled. Colonel? Kenson eyed her. Nice try, witch, but we won't be saying his name, nor will we reveal his location, although he should be here soon. How would Kenson know that? Did he know that? He might have been good at faking it, but it's also possible he ran into Darius again after he ran deep into the woods. Odissa waited some more, and at last she was rewarded with the sight of a black-armored man. He carried multiple bags, struggling, but succeeding to carry them. He took the bags and placed them on the ground near Meredith and Scipio. He gave them a look. Don't open these. Odissa spoke up at last. I presume perhaps that you are the commander of this company. What shall I call you? I am called Odissa of Tar. I am the witch of Tar, and shall be the one who shall be speaking for the Grand Coven. I propose that you take your carts and go in peace. Let there be no more violence on either side. We have agreed to let you go. Killing would come at great cost. And as for your kin, I see this as beneficial to you as well. You are tired and growing weak of travel through the bog. These carts are a gesture of good faith, and it assures that you will be gone for a marbog, and not to return. Darius shook his head. You may call me Colonel. I speak for the forces of Shing in this matter. Have the carts been inspected? Odysseus smiled, knowing this would happen. Your forces have been hesitant to look them over. They say that you are to speak for them, and that they would not act until you arrived. Darius motioned for Sai to look over the carts. The beasts look like they've been hexed to go mad. Before any deal is made, I'd start with that. Other than that, I would dispel any magic around the carts, just to be sure. Darius nodded. Then do it. Just as planned. They would not be able to dispel the magic in the wheels. It was insulated well from magic, and although thrown together quickly, designed not to be easily removed or found unless you knew exactly how and where to detect it. The Tar Witch waved her hands. Ever the cautious ones. Could it be said that we give you these carts in exchange for the witch prisoner you have there? We will be happy to give you supplies in exchange for her. Darius didn't answer. He just looked at the witch, eyeing her up and down. He had no way to know what was wrong with the cart, but he knew there was more. He stepped close to the magus and whispered in his ear. The magus listened. The magus didn't seem to understand, but he readied a spell as he was instructed. Not just him. Others seemed to be told to do the same thing. The magus seemed to cast silencing magic at different locations. From what the witch could tell, it was a silent spell, nothing more, although it didn't seem to be focused on her, but some distance away from her. He cast a spell, and out of the woods stepped armed men with black blades. They had a small company of witches with them. In total they had 9 witches, each with blades to their throat. The black blades likely messed with magic, but all the same the silence seemed to hold. He looked at the 9 witches and pointed for the youngest of them to be moved to the end. "What is this?" Odissa asked, looking at her sisters, one of which was her daughter. Darius pointed at the youngest of the witches and pointed a spot further down the line of men. Although the person inside the silence could not hear, they moved the girl over near the edge of the line. Darius began, "Depending on your actions, they will die." Odissa growled with fury. "This was not part of the bargain. You said you would leave in peace. You said you wanted carts." Darius agreed, but wasn't about to just accept. "Yes, and the bargain has not yet been made, has it? Once the bargain is struck, we shall leave in peace, but not before. You speak for the coven. Truly. You speak for all of the witches. I don't believe you." Odissa was furious. "Yes, you fool. Do not look for trickery when there is none. I speak for the Grand Coven. When the bargain is struck, none of our witches or those we command will attack you." Darius clarified. "Nor will you persuade anyone in any way to hinder us in any way. You will allow no harm of any kind to come to our company should we leave, and we shall leave. Alter your terms to accommodate me. Odessa growled, "It is done, but know that you have angered us." Darius asked another question. "What's wrong with the carts? What part of the deal are you leaving out?" Odessa began to explain. "You have inspected the carts yourself and found nothing. You yourself have altered the terms of the deal, yet you still ask what is wrong." Darius motioned his head to one of his men. He slit the throat of one of the witches, letting her die in complete and absolute silence. She spat out blood before falling without being able to speak. Odessa howled with rage, and nearly came at Darius, but realized that he would no doubt kill her and the others should she try that. Several of the company of Shing got wide-eyed or shook with tension. What was he doing? What did he do? Darius asked again, "What's wrong with the deal, and what's wrong with the carts? Something is wrong." Odysseus spat on the floor near his feet, then answered, "Nothing is wrong." Darius coldly told her, "I don't believe you. Not at all." He motioned to another soldier who slit yet another witch's throat. He had 7 more he could do that to. Odessa considered casting magic on the soldiers, but it wouldn't work. She thought of what spell she could use to help them escape. "Release them! Release them now!" Darius refused. "No, not until you amend what's wrong with our deal. You left out something. I'd be a fool to leave it as it is. Tell me how you intend to harm us." Odessa growled once again, "Yet there is nothing." Darius motioned to the guards once again, and even his own men were starting to get rowdy. Another witch fell dead. Darius motioned again. Another was killed. 5 remained. Darius clarified, "Next time I'll kill 3. I don't believe you. There is something wrong with the deal. Tell me what you're leaving out, or you can all die." Odessa looked at the carts, then looked at him. Desperation welled up in her, and in her voice it came out. "No, please, wait! No more lies! We have done something. We have placed enchantments in the wheels. They will fall off partway through the journey, and will continue to do so." Darius looked at the carts. Sai sensed as best he could. "I can't find them. They must have done something where I can't see it." So then Darius gave her the command, "Remove it, now." Odessa grunted, but wasn't going to let 3 witches die over what was effectively a petty prank. No, it was better to let them have this small victory. She came up to the wheels one by one and prepared her magic and disabled the enchantments wheel by wheel. Sai saw how she did it and caught on, starting to replicate what she did. Before long he was doing it himself. Sai nodded to Darius. "They're all clear now." Darius looked to the witch and asked again, "What else is wrong with it?" Odysseus' eyes widened. There was nothing else. She was a skilled actress, but how could she convince them there was really nothing else? Nothing at all. What more could he want from her? "Believe me, sir, there is nothing else. Spare them. I have done as you asked." Darius nodded in the direction of his men 3 times. 3 witches' throats were slit, and they fell to the floor, letting out completely silent screams. It was haunting to see them cry out, but nothing could be heard. Odessa wailed out in pain, "You motherless scum! All of you die! All of you die! Die for what you have done!" Darius repeated himself, "What else did you leave out?" What should she do? Was there something she could make up? Anything at all? Something to sweeten the deal, perhaps? "Spare them, I beg of you! They did nothing to you! They are no threat to you! Spare them! There are no more traps! I can promise no ambushes or allies of ours attack you. We weren't planning it, but I can promise that as well. Your journey will go unharassed, I swear it." Darius nodded one more time slowly. "I don't believe you." Another witch died. Odessa was in some sort of a nightmare. She cried tears and fell on her hands and knees. Powerless was she. She hated this man before her with everything she had, but she was desperate. The last one was her daughter. "Please, no more. Just go. Tell me what you want. Please just leave us. Kill no more. There is nothing else. We have nothing else." Darius looked to the girl the witch was trying to save. "Is that one important to you?" Odessa thought about lying, but ultimately nodded. "She is of my blood." Darius looked carefully at the now tearing up witch who was thrashing against a small group of men. Useless without her magic. "Look at your daughter, then." Odessa looked up and saw her daughter, sadness in her eyes. Darius took a knife and threw it into the girl's hip. The black blade cut into the bone and made the girl scream silently. Odessa screamed, "There is nothing else!" Darius grabbed her by the throat and looked her in the eye. I believe you. I'll let her live. Repeat the deal back to me. Odessa hurried. We will give you these carts. Your journey will go unharassed and without harm by us, by any who were motivated by our covenant in any way. No traps or ambushes will await you. You will travel uninterrupted in any way by the Grand Coven. In exchange you will leave and kill no more. Darius wanted to add one more thing. If you come after Shing or my forces in any way, know that I will return. I will kill you. All of you. Do you believe me? Odessa nodded and hurriedly agreed. Yes, please go. Darius stabbed her in the chest and let her bleed, but it was not a fatal wound. We have a bargain as of now. Let the girl go. Let her tend to her mother's wounds. Let them go back to their homes. Everyone get in. We're leaving. The young witch had to crawl over to her mother and try her best to catch magic to heal her. The girl wept as she looked at the dead and then at Darius. You're the monster here, not us. Darius didn't disagree. Take your mother and go. If I were you, I would sever your bond to the goddess. The little girl had a look that could kill, but few saw it. Certainly not the one it was intended for. Darius made his way into a cart full of bags of goods he stole from the witches. His black-bladed men looked back with fierce intent, telling themselves that Darius had done what was necessary. Most were silent. Alyssa kicked and screamed until she was beaten to the point where she was quiet. Scipio looked back at the sobbing child and the bleeding mother. This is... Meredith sighed. I know it was rough to watch, but it worked. I can pretty much guarantee there's nothing that'll go wrong. It would have been worse if he hadn't. Augustana didn't believe it. How can you say that? Are we really so willing to sacrifice our souls just for the sake of victory? To go that far? Kenson shook his head. It was necessary. Remember, they were witches, and they would certainly kill us if they ever had the chance. They've enslaved men and women and beat them mercilessly. They have eaten flesh and forced humans to become breeding stock. Sven muttered, laying down. He should have just killed them both. That was his only mistake. Mina clung to Sai and had a disturbed look on her face. He whispered into her ear, trying however he could to comfort her. The war, if it could be called that, was over. That everyone was safe now, that this ensured they wouldn't attack Shing again. They struck a blow to the witches that needed to be dealt. They were monsters, and it was easy to forget that sometimes whenever they saw a child crying over their mother. But they had to remind themselves how horrible the witches were.